All right, it looks like everybody is just trickling in. I know most of you intend to watch this on the replay and not live because even though it's Friday, I know we were all really busy. So I'm going to go ahead and get started while I wait for the last of you to hop on in. Today, we are covering the topic of building your own brand and attracting your own clients. And for those of you, I just want to give you a reminder, those of you that are joining us on online live, we are recording this and I will be sending the replay to everybody tomorrow after the second portion of the webinar. So, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I've broken this topic into two different days of material. Today we're talking specifically about building your brand, and then tomorrow we're going to pivot a little bit more into how to sell yourself authentically to clients and actually close the deal and the offer. So in order to do that, I'm going to share my screen. Today and tomorrow will dovetail really nicely together. Tomorrow there'll be a little bit of a recap of what we're going through today, but I have a lot of content to cover. So I'm really excited just to go on and get started. I'm going to share my screen here and we'll jump on in. Okay. As you can see, the screen over here. My name is Autumn Noble. I am a life and career coach, and I work exclusively with attorneys and professional women of all different backgrounds. I have a podcast called the Lawyer Life Podcast. I have a book called the Lawyer Life Survival Guide, and I'm the founder of the Lawyer Life Collective, as well as my sister company, Lady Ish, where I offer the same types of coaching services on a more holistic basis. So, under the umbrella of Lady Ish, I offer guided meditations, sound healing, Reiki services, tarot and intuitive readings, as well as life and career coaching and personal training and yoga classes to kind of round out that holistic approach to us women as total and complete human beings with different needs and different aspects of our lives that often need attention and support in the same way that we think of our careers needing attention and support. So, under the umbrella of Ladyish, I attend to all different aspects of us as women and support you in whatever one of those areas you want to focus on at this time. So, today we're going to cover four really simple topics that relate primarily to how to brand yourself and what it means to having a brand. So, we're going to talk about why even have a brand and what that means, how you develop your own unique brand. And then I'm going to teach you a really simple tool that you can use to start building your brand today. Lastly, I'm going to give you some practical steps that you can execute immediately on Monday and starting your own brand and kind of laying the groundwork of building your own client base. So let's go ahead and get started with this quote I find so powerful when it comes to our brands and who we are as women and attorneys. I often get questions around, how do I be more like X, Y, or Z? How do I be more like that masculine idea of a general counsel that I think the company wants or that I think the other C-level executives would respect? And I get that question a lot from women stepping into partnership roles or general counsel roles, wanting to know, like, how do I fit more into that mold? And so I just want to start off today being really clear that that is not my goal to teach you how to be anything other than yourself. And this quote really drives it home. Be yourself, not your idea of what you think somebody else's idea of yourself should be. So I really want to encourage you to be open to letting go of this idea of how we should be as women and attorneys, how we should market our services, and what our own personal brand should be, and really embracing what feels right to you. So let's just set the groundwork here and talk briefly about why do we even have a brand? And first and foremost, I think brands are really important because it allows us to develop trust and credibility. It showcases your expertise, but also your values, which makes it easier for clients and colleagues within your organization to trust you. When potential clients recognize your specialization or see you having a strong online presence in your area of expertise, they're going to feel a lot more confident in your abilities and referring coworkers and friends to you for legal support. It also, within your own organization, a personal brand communicates to your partners and your coworkers the type of work that you want and what your knowledge and skill set is. And that will help you focus on getting more projects that align with who you want to be and the type of work that you actually want to do. Consistency in your branding also builds relationships because clients are a lot more likely to return to you or refer others to you when your values, your services, and your reputation are clearly defined. Additionally, this is going to help you attract other clients you may not be currently working with. It allows you to kind of stand out in a sea of other attorneys that may do the exact same type of work that you do. And this will allow you to distinguish yourself from them, your values, your niche, your strengths, and the type of work that you want to do, so that the people that see you online can say, you know what, this person's a little bit different than all of these other people, and that's why I want to work with them. It offers that differentiation that can be really hard to get in the legal industry because there's so many of us. It's also going to emphasize your unique approach, your client-centered approach, or your specialization, or your unique background that might bring a different perspective to your practice area. It also contributes to your retention and consistency with your clients because when your brand stays the same, it's going to foster long-term client relationships and loyalty. For me, I think the most exciting part of developing a brand is that it will offer you a lot of unique growth opportunities. It's going to create this professional visibility online. And so that can lead to speaking engagements or collaboration engagements, media appearances, invitations to contribute to industry publications or industry events. And so, really being clear about your brand and your niche online sets you up to be found in those types of industry specific searches. Lastly, it's going to allow you to position yourself as a thought leader by strategically developing your brand. You position yourself as someone who's following the developments, who's talking about what needs to be changed or new legal developments in your particular area. Again, that can lead to not only more clients, but more visibility and more networking and advertising opportunities for you. The last point I want to make that I think is so important about having a really clear brand is that it allows you to focus your development and your marketing. So, the development piece of it is important because as an attorney, we could practice in a million different areas. And I think a lot of us kind of get pulled into a million different areas in our practices. And the fact of the matter is, if you're trying to market yourself and speak to all of the things that we can do as attorneys, you're kind of shouting into the void. But when you know what your brand is and you know what type of work you want to do and what type of client you want to work with, you can narrow your marketing and advertising in such a way that it speaks directly to the people that you want to find. No more kind of shouting into the ether because we're trying to talk to everyone. When we narrow it down, it makes it a lot easier for people to find us, but it also makes it easier for us to develop marketing materials. So when you know who your people are and you know what your brand is, it's going to be a lot easier to create marketing materials because you're going to start thinking about what it is they want and what it is that they need. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that today and also tomorrow. So just kind of give you a high level overview of why this is so important to be clear about your brand. But for many of you, I'm assuming you're here because you know that branding really is important. So, developing your brand invites you to ask two really important questions. What do you want? And who do you want to be? And this is the point where I invite you to start casting that vision about what do you want to stand for? What type of work do you want to do? What type of work don't you want to do? Because remember, when we're developing a brand, we want to start narrowly tailoring our focus, but also our practice. Because if we're trying to talk to everyone and we're trying to market to everyone, we're essentially marketing and talking to nobody. And so this is going to mean that you're going to have to make some decisions about the type of work that you want, the type of clients you want, and the type of work and clients that you don't want. Additionally, start casting that vision and thinking about, how do I show up in certain circumstances? Am I a public speaker? Am I a networker? Who is that person that I want to become when I think about my personal brand that I'm creating? What's different about that person? What do they think about every day when they go to work or when they go to networking events? So really start thinking about, if I created my brand and it had all these components, who would I be if I was living that brand? What would my goals be? What types of clients would I be pursuing? And really start kind of thinking big, because from there we're going to back into it over these next couple days and how to make that brand a reality. There are really, in my mind, three essential pieces of your brand that we're going to discuss over these next 2 days. First and foremost is, who are your clients? Who's your ideal client? And where does that work come from? Does it come from a general counsel at a company? Does it come from a CPA or an inventor? Or, really asking yourself, who are the type of people? Is it the HR person? Is it the CFO? Who are the people I want to be getting invitations for legal services from? Who do I want to be working with on a daily basis? Maybe you're someone who just wants to kind of churn the work and receive work from partners forever. That's perfectly fine. But start thinking about, where do I want my pipeline of work to come from? Do you want to own your own clients? Again, many of you are here because that is part of the goal. But I think it's an important question to ask yourself. Are you pursuing your own client base because you want to, or because you feel like you have to? The other component, which is obvious, is your work, the types of work that you want to do and who you want to work with. And this could include specific people within your firm, it could include specific people within target clients, and asking yourself the types of work and the types of people that you want to avoid. I know in my own private practice, there are types of work that I don't want to do anymore. And really, that's kind of a hard conversation to have with yourself, and realizing that, gosh, I used to enjoy doing that, or I did that when I was a younger attorney because I had to. But I don't really want to do that anymore, and I don't enjoy it. And so, really inviting you to make some tough decisions in crafting your own brand. The last piece that we're going to talk about is you and how you fit into this brand. How do you show up at work? What does your life look like? How do you interact with people? How do you get clients? What are you thinking about yourself day in and day out? I'm going to go ahead and take a pause here and just make sure that everything is running as it should. If someone can let me know in the chat whether or not you can see my screen, if I'm sharing the right screen, that would be wonderful. Okay, let's go ahead and move on here. Okay, got it. Thank you so much for that. So let's talk about your ideal client, and really asking yourself, do you even know who it is? And does it even matter to you now? Have you thought about why it matters to you or shouldn't matter to you at this point? And really forcing yourself again, am I at the stage where I've even thought about who my ideal client is? And we're going to talk about, how do we figure that out and why it is so important to give it some thought, no matter where you are in your legal career. This is where we develop what I call a client avatar. When we talk about client avatars, I want you to start envisioning the type of client that you want. Who are they? What is their role? Are they in a company? Are they solo entrepreneurs? What does their day or life look like, day to day, week to week? And more importantly, is it that they're worried about? What keeps them up at night with respect to their business or their work? What is it that they want? And who do they go to for advice? And this is really important. And I'm going to show you as we move along here why the answers to these questions can not only help you develop that core element of your brand, but it's going to help you develop a plan of attack in figuring out where to find these clients and how to sell to them specifically. As I said earlier, when we know these things about our clients, it allows us to give direction to our marketing and our work. We can tailor our messages specific to that audience and tailor your workload to align with future goals. This is something that I learned really early in my career, and I'll share with you just a little bit. When I started practicing law, there was a huge piece of legislation that came out maybe 2 years into my practice. And at the time, I was sort of working generally within the corporate finance world at a big firm. And so I was doing IP stuff, M&A stuff, ERISA and finance stuff. I was kind of all over the place. And I finally decided that I really liked working with the ERISA attorneys. I like the type of work, I like the type of clients they were working with. Mostly they were HR people or CFOs, and I really enjoyed those individuals. And so I said to the practice group chair, I want to work only in the ERISA and ERISA finance related area of our department. And from there, I was able to really start positioning myself within the larger corporate finance umbrella as the, ascending associate in ERISA and corporate finance. And from there, I was able to sort of tell people, this is the work I want to do. I'm actually not doing that kind of work so much anymore. I'm becoming more of an expert in this field. And from there, I was able to start seeking out speaking engagements and doing more marketing materials in that area because I knew the type of people that I wanted to work with. From there, I was able to start reaching out and connecting with my own client avatar and the types of people that I wanted to connect with. Because once you figure out who your client avatar is, because you know what type of work you want to do, you're able to really connect with them and speak to them about, hey, did you see that humongous piece of litigation that came out last week? Are you stressing about it? I'm hosting, an educational webinar on this. Would you like to attend? It's free. And so you can kind of start speaking to like, gosh, I'm sure you're feeling really overwhelmed about that thing that came out. And it allows us an opportunity to kind of leverage our understanding of them, leverage their worries to put ourselves in front of them and get to know them in the line and in the course of their own business and work. Because if you don't find them and get in front of them and start understanding them, it's nearly impossible to sell to them. When you care about the work and you care about your client avatar and you care about what they're worried about, selling becomes very easy. And that's what we're going to focus on today. When you know your client avatar and you have an idea of the type of work that you want to do, we start building our brand right where you are, within your firm, within your organization. And by that, what I mean is doing kind of what I was discussing earlier in my early years of practice. You let that avatar and those goals around your practice drive your networking within the firm. I always say to young attorneys and attorneys who have changed firms, have you met everybody at your firm? And if you haven't, print out a list and start making the rounds, knocking on doors or scheduling virtual coffees. Because once you know who you want to work with, what your client avatar is, and the type of work that you want to do, the people that can connect you to them might be sitting just down the hallway from you, but you don't know until you start getting out there and meeting the firm and connecting with your coworkers and saying to them, hey, like this is the type of work I want to do and the type of people I want to work with. Is there anyone in your network that can connect me with those types of people or send me that kind of work? I did this exclusively for 1 year when I was hired to build my own practice group, and that's all I did. And doing just that within a relatively small firm, I built a multi-million dollar practice group over a really short period of time. Like this is low-hanging fruit. When you know who you're looking for and you know the types of problems that they're worrying about and how they fit into different organizations, the people within your firm are probably the most likely to connect you to them in the short term. Another thing you can do within the space that you're in is to start really examining the client base of the firm. For me, I liked working with huge multinational corporations because I knew that they probably had a history of M&A activity, which creates a history of really messy retirement plans, finances, and payroll. And so for me, if I could get a look at the firm's list of top clients, I would be very easily able to see, okay, there's 10 clients on this list that are exactly the type of clients that I know I can help. And I know what types of issues they're probably worrying about. And from there, I was able to say, okay, these are the attorneys in my firm or the people that know them or are responsible for that relationship. And I set up meetings with them and said, hey, would it surprise you to know that you have this client that probably has all of these issues and we're not doing any of that work? And I'm guessing that if we get ourselves in front of them, they would be more than happy to consolidate legal services under one firm. And if you do that again and again and again, you are going to start getting traction. And even if they don't buy or move the work right away, at least they start to know, okay, my firm that does this other work, now they have somebody there that does this, excuse me, this kind of work as well. So understanding your client base in your firm and seeing, are any of my client avatars on that list that I'm not currently working with? Are there other firms on that list that we're not really generating a lot of revenue from, but I think we could really grow, and really kind of analyzing that list to look for opportunities and leverage it. What comes at the end of all of this is really socializing that brand, because in doing all of these steps and meeting your firm and connecting with your clients, it's going to invite you to say, this is the type of work I want to do. These are the type of people that I want to work with. And the more you socialize that and the more your firm sees you doing that, the more people are going to think of you when those issues come up, and you're going to start to develop that pipeline. And so, again, that's why we kind of started with, what type of work do you want to do and who's your target client? Because as you start this process of building your brand, you're sort of spreading the word and socializing this idea of who you want to be. And so we want to get really clear on who that is. And it's not to say you can never change it, you certainly can, but at least at the early stages, we're going to be inviting ourselves to kind of put it out there and own what we want to be doing and where we're wanting to grow. So I'm going to take a pause here and just kind of recap where we've been. We talked briefly at the beginning about why it is so essential to have a brand, and we've discussed developing a brand, and that consists of those three elements: your clients, your work and your practice, and then you as a person. So I'm going to pivot now to talking about kind of that third piece of it, and that is you and where you fit in to this overarching scheme of building a brand so that you can build your own practice. So we've talked about why it's important, and that part of kind of crafting a brand is really easy, right? I think logically we all know, yes, it's important to have a brand. Yes, it makes sense for me to kind of know who my ideal clients are and the type of work that I want to do. That's not hard. But the hard part really comes in when we start thinking about, can I actually do it? Will I actually meet with the people in my firm and understand their business and understand their work? Will I actually be able to meet with these clients and sell them and have a coherent conversation with them? That is truly where the hard work comes in. And this is truly the piece where people kind of give up, right? Like, you can figure out your practice, you can kind of figure out your brand and what you want. But when it comes to you actually participating in that plan, things start to get a little bit sticky. And I think an easy way to kind of know if you're struggling in this area is to ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I'm absolutely going to do this, and 1, I'm not going to do it at all, I'm very uncomfortable. How likely are you to start executing and developing this brand that you're sort of crafting in your head here? And if your answer is anything below 10, that's a sign that there's something else going on here that probably has to do with your perception of yourself and your ability to actually create this. As we think about this idea of ourselves and building a brand and marketing, I want to take a little segue here and kind of conduct an experiment. I want you to finish these sentences. I'm not good at, I don't like, and that won't work because. And I have added some examples here that I have heard a million times from coaching women lawyers all over the world. And these are all the instances or examples or justifications that they give me when I talk to them about building a brand and I say, okay, are we going to execute? Are we actually going to do this? And they say, well, but I'm not really good at public speaking. Like, I don't really want to put my brand out there and get speaking opportunities because that makes me really uncomfortable, right? Or I don't really want to go to networking events because it gives me the ick. I just feel really uncomfortable. Or I don't really want to, pursue other firm clients for business because I don't think they'll ever buy from me. I don't really like, negotiating legal services. It makes me uncomfortable. I've never done it before. And they only, sell to the old guys in the firm, but not me. So it's just the way that it is. I have heard these statements 1,000 times. And I want to just call them out here because when we make these sorts of statements, we are telling ourselves that what we want in the future to build a brand, to speak and network and get our own business and sell clients and all of those things, that's what we want. We can't have that because somewhere in the past we weren't very good at some of the underlying pieces. And those conclusions that we have drawn about ourselves from those past experiences are dictating what we think we're capable of tomorrow. And that's really important because if we actually believe these things, these stories that we're telling ourselves about things that have happened in the past, these conclusions that we're drawing about ourselves, if we put energy behind these, they are never going to help you build your brand. And these reasons, this third pillar of your brand, you as a human being believing you can do it, is going to be limited by all of this kind of thinking. What we believe about who we are and what we're capable of almost always is based upon our past successes, but also our past failures. So if you follow this logic, right? Like when you're a child, you can think, you know what? Someday I want to ride a bike and drive a car and own a house. And you're a child who's never done any of those things. And maybe, you aren't good at managing your allowance. And maybe you're not good at riding a bike and you fell off the first time, right? There's a lot of evidence in your past you can't do any of those things in the future. But as kids, we don't care about that. We don't care that we've never done those things. We don't care that we failed at them in the past. We just decide that we're going to be this person in the future and we're going to do it. And so it's no different than what we are trying to do here. We have this clear idea of who we want to be and what we want to create, but yet we're looking at our past and all the things that we weren't good at one time or that we tried once and failed. And we're drawing conclusions there to tell us to stop, that what we actually want is not possible. And that's the awareness that I really want you to bring to the table today. Because if you want to build your brand, find your own clients, and build your own practice foundation, we have to stop letting our past failures or successes dictate what we're capable of in the future. It truly does limit our evolution, and it's not a reflection of what we're capable of, right? Think of ourselves as kids or high school kids, even who did all these amazing things later in life that we probably never thought we'd be able to do and probably freaked us out at the time, but we do it anyway because we believe it's possible. And that's what we need to access here. How you have failed or succeeded at business development, marketing, or building your own brand in the past is completely irrelevant. You can create a brand and be whoever you want to be in your legal practice moving forward as long as you start believing that it's possible. The only thing the past is helpful for is knowing what we've already done. It's not helpful for knowing what we're capable of. There's a difference. But somewhere along the lines, when we become adults, like we just decide that our past failures or our past successes are an indication of what we are absolutely capable of or absolutely not capable of. And we just keep moving on with life. And I think those past failures and those past discomforts with marketing and networking is why a lot of women just like let it go. Like, hey, I'm not good at it. This is not my thing, and they move on. And what I'm trying to tell you is that we have to treat those past failures as if we were learning to ride a bike and commit to trying again and again and again and formulating a new belief about ourselves as someone who's learning to do those things instead of as someone who's not good at them because we weren't good at them in the past. In branding, this is so essential. And I'm going to circle back to this a little bit tomorrow, but I just kind of want to plant the seed of it here today. This matters in branding because when you start thinking about who you want to be, someone who is a great salesperson and connects with the clients and networks and follows up and confidently touts their abilities or their firm's abilities, when you think about yourself in that way, in order to show up as that person, there has to be part of us that believes all that stuff, that we're capable of it, that we're good at it, that we do have something to offer that makes us unique, that we're good enough to get their business. Because no one is going to build a book of business and a successful brand going around believing I'm not good at this, I can't do it, they're never going to buy from me. So we have to start identifying those thought patterns before we start really executing on the brand. Because if that's the thinking and those are the thoughts that we bring with us, those beliefs from the past and what we're capable of, and if we don't change them, we're never going to feel confident enough to execute on what I'm going to teach you over these next couple days. Because those thoughts, those ideas, I can't do this, I'm not good at this, creates emotions and those emotions drive our actions. And that's as simple as I can possibly put it. So when we think I'm not good at this, I feel insecure, I feel really not confident at all. And from that emotional space, I'm not going to execute and I'm not going to try and sell to a client or connect with the partners at my firm to get more work out of our existing client base. And so we have to really recognize that in order to do all of the things, we have to change what's happening in here and in here, or we're never going to follow through. We cannot let our past limit our future. And so this is where a lot of us are coming from. When we think about our brand, implicitly, we have to start saying no to some work and yes to work that aligns with the brand. And a lot of us feel like, well, gosh, I've just never really been good at saying no. I'm not good at boundaries. This is just the way it is. Or when it comes to selling to clients, like they're never going to buy from me. I don't know enough yet. I've never gotten my own client. All of those thoughts, very common, very compelling, and likely some data to back it up, right? Like we know whether you've ever had a client before or anyone's ever bought from you, but that doesn't mean that thought is helpful. This is another one I hear quite a bit. They'll think I'm dumb. I'm only a fourth year. I'm only a this or I'm only a that. My opinions at this stage of my career aren't important and I don't want to embarrass myself. There may be a lot of truth to these thoughts, and there may be some evidence to back them up for sure, and anecdotal evidence of things that have happened to us to prove why these thoughts are right for us. But what I want you to know is that none of those thoughts are going to help you create your brand. If you don't have a brand yet and you want to create it in the future, we have to start thinking and acting differently. Because if you keep thinking the way that you are, it's going to create the same actions and the same feelings and the same results over and over again. But if you want a different result in the future, our thinking and acting and feeling has to change. It's impossible to create something new in the future without changing the way we're thinking. So here's what I'm proposing for some of those beliefs. If you want to be someone who is better at saying no, we want to start believing, I'm figuring out how to be more assertive. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel super empowering, but it feels a lot better than I've never done that before. It leaves open the possibility that you can learn to be better about boundaries and more assertive. If you're worried that no one's ever going to buy from you, maybe a thought that you kind of try on for size is like, I know a lot and I have a really good team or a really good firm supporting me. I don't have to do all of the work that comes in the door. I have a whole group of people who can back me up. Those thoughts are going to help you feel more positive and assured about showing up and touting your ability to support your potential clients. They'll think I'm dumb, right? If I speak up. And then consider shifting to I have a lot of good experience and it's taught me a lot, and what I have to say matters. Again, these are just kind of sample thoughts that you can try on, but it's about shifting away from those negative thoughts to something that actually makes us feel empowered, because that feeling is what we need to start taking some of the actions that I'm going to be teaching you today and tomorrow. So that's really kind of the secret ingredient when it comes to building your brand. It's not hard to figure out who you want your clients to be. It's not hard to figure out what you want your practice to look like. It's hard to believe that you can do it. And without that third element, you're never going to get there. And it is the most powerful element, but it's also the most difficult element in developing that brand. With that in mind, we're going to continue moving forward, and I'm going to teach you how to start building this brand now. I'm happy to take a pause here if anybody has any questions. I know some of you are in groups, so feel free to drop anything in the chat if you want me to attend to that, but we'll keep trucking. Okay, so all of this is fine and good, but what do we need to be doing now to start developing the brand and taking action? We started with setting that vision. And part of that vision invites us to get really clear on what we want for work and what we want for clients. And from there, we can really start developing a plan of shifting away and kind of tightening our practice and tightening our own client base to focus on clients and work that aligns with who we want to be. Part of that may invite you to develop more areas of your practice that maybe need a little bit more attention. If you're a litigator and part of your brand of who you want to be is someone who's really, really good at expert depositions and you've never taken one, that's really good to know, right? Part of the reason we have a brand is that it helps us develop and create a developmental plan and where we need to grow and where we need to focus our own development. And so, with that information, you can start developing a plan. Okay, if this is part of my brand and part of what I want to be able to do is to be great at expert depositions, like I probably need to start actively pursuing projects like that now. And so we can start developing our own plan to learn and grow those areas of our brand that maybe we're not quite there yet. So I would encourage you as you think about your brand, identify an area where you want to grow if you're not quite there where you want to be in your brand. Or maybe it's developing an idea of clients that you want to work more with or clients you want to work less with and developing a plan around those. And lastly, being really honest about those plans. Because again, as you start getting clear on your brand, it's likely going to force you to make some changes in the work that you take and the clients that you work for. And socializing those to the people around you that can support you is going to help solidify that brand. And it could be as simple as saying, hey, I've had a few projects from your client. I really like them. They are definitely the type of client I want to spend my practice working with. Is there any way I can get more involved? Right? That's a very actionable step. Or having a conversation, like I did as a young attorney and saying, hey, I don't, really want to focus on this type of work as much in the future. I'm happy to help you out when needed, but just so you know, I'm really asking for more work from X, Y, and Z instead, and I intend to be full with that kind of work. And so, really, just sort of putting people on notice of where you're focusing your energy and attention. And remember, none of this has to be forever. You can always change your mind. But what I would encourage you to do is kind of decide on your brand, develop a plan, and commit to it for a year and see what happens and see where it goes. And then a year into it, you can kind of retool as needed and adjust, depending upon what you learn in that journey. The beautiful thing about this whole process is that it's going to force you to challenge some of your thinking and to do things that are probably uncomfortable. Because again, what we're contemplating is a path forward in creating a brand and building your own client base that's new. So that's going to require us to think differently, to act differently, to do different things. That inherently is not going to be easy and is probably not going to feel good. And in doing so, we are going to become more confident, but it's also going to force us to kind of face some of our own negative thought patterns and stories that we tell ourselves. As you sort of develop your plan and start executing, it would not surprise me if you start kind of coming face to face with the stories that you tell yourself about what you're capable of. For example, early in my career, I sat down with a practice group chair and I remember him telling me that I wasn't invited to participate on a client project because it was a union group. And he's basically said the union would never connect with me as a woman. And I remember thinking, well, I grew up on a farm and I'm probably a lot more blue collar than you are, but because I'm a woman and look the way that I look and not like some large blue collar man, you're not going to allow me, or you think I'm never going to be able to work with clients like that. And I took that story and I believed it. And I believed it for a long time that blue collar clients, male dominated industries would never buy from me, would never want to work with me. And I realized in doing this work that I was going to have to let that go. And I was going to have to believe that I maybe was the right fit for them, maybe a better fit for them than some of my white collar colleagues who happen to be male. And so really, asking yourself like, why am I not pursuing clients like that? Or why am I not getting involved in that pitch? And pulling up some of that garbage that we've been telling ourselves for years and starting to understand how it's been inhibiting our own development and our own growth. Because I promise you it has. And we all have these stories. It's also going to force you to confront some of your own problematic thinking. That imposter syndrome is absolutely going to come up when you do these things. And our propensity to imagine the worst. One I often see in lawyers, and I think it's because we're sort of professional catastrophizers in a certain sort of a way, is that all we see are dead ends and roadblocks and catastrophe, right? If we talk about making a pitch or pursuing this particular client, our minds go to that worst case scenario and like immediately believe that it's going to come true. And so I always say, as lawyers, we're kind of like negative fortune tellers, but we really believe that we know how these things are going to go and they're never going to go well. And so as you do this work, start paying attention to those times when you just imagine the worst is going to happen, but you not only imagine it, but like you really believe it. And then you tell yourself that because that's how it's going to play out, you're not going to do it. I see it time and time and time again. And what I can tell you is that when you push through that and challenge that part of your brain that tells you this can only go one way and that way is bad, you're going to prove yourself wrong more than you think. And in doing so, again, you're going to become more confident because it's forcing you to do the uncomfortable things, to challenge those uncomfortable parts of ourselves and change it and power through it and challenge it in ways that we haven't done before. That creates more confidence, which makes this path forward even easier for you. One thing I would invite you to really do when you feel this thinking and kind of worried patterning creeping back in is to really take stock and take inventory of what you do bring to the table. Our brains have a tendency, our own confirmation bias and negativity bias sort of team up on us to tell us, why we can't do it and why it's not going to work and why we're not good enough. And we really have to force our brains to look at the other side of the coin. So give yourself more credit and force yourself to do that and take stock of what you are good at and what you do bring to the table that makes you unique. And from that space, it might help you find more beliefs about why you can do this and why you can sell yourself and find your own clients and why you have everything it takes to be your own rainmaker. Once again, as I said earlier, in doing this, it's going to force us to start kind of socializing what we want, which again, I think is at the heart of why this is so challenging for women. We're not always really great at it. Boundaries are something I coach on a lot for women attorneys, and saying no is something I coach around a lot as well. We have a lot of perfectionist tendencies that make it hard for us to say no, but we also sort of want to be a team player. And so we give more than we should and do more than we should. But building your own brand is going to force you to challenge a lot of that. In doing so, it's going to invite you to use your voice and ask for what you want and voice what you don't want and what you are struggling with. And ask for opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have pursued before if those opportunities align with this brand that you're creating. In doing so, you're going to build more authentic relationships. You're going to be forced and challenged to stand up and say no when you're really tempted to say yes, because, that's easier and it kind of gets to the people pleaser part of us. But what I want you to see is that it never feels good to say yes when we mean no. And usually afterwards, it feels even worse because we dig ourselves into these holes of, overworking and total burnout. And it doesn't feel good to say no, right? It's like we have two paths ahead of us that don't feel good. But one path is going to further your brand and further your client development, and one is not. And so I would really invite you to consider how you're using your voice and asking whether, if there's two paths of discomfort ahead of you, saying yes when you mean no, or saying no and that feels really gross, but it's the truth. If there's two paths of discomfort ahead of you, which one furthers your ultimate goal of building your own brand and your practice and choosing that route instead? Part of this is choosing actions, paths, and routes that align with your future self and that future brand. And maybe even reaching out to her, that you that's created the brand and has the clients, and asking, what would she do in this circumstance? How would she show up at this seminar? How would she speak at this networking event? What would she do here? And contacting that future part of you for advice, for guidance, and for support, and trusting that she's there and that you can create that. With all of this in mind, I just want to call out that again, there's three parts of building your brand. There's your clients, your ideal practice, and then there's you. And you are the hardest part of the change that I'm inviting you to take here. And the reason that that's so hard to shift our thinking, shift the story we're talking about, is because our brains are really wired for consistency, right? We're wired to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and maintain consistency. And branching out, developing your own brand, being more clear about the work that you want that aligns with that brand, it's not going to feel good. And that motivational triad built into your primitive brain is going to freak out. And that part of you that likes consistency, like, well, the devil I know, is better than the devil I don't know. That consistency is very persuasive because it's biologically wired into us. And so I just want to own, this isn't easy and it is challenging, but it's challenging for everybody. It's not you. There's nothing wrong with you that makes this uniquely challenging. It's just being aware that, like, hey, this stuff is hard. But I really invite you to keep going and keep trying, and trust that as you start paving your own way, developing your own brand, not everyone's going to get it, and that's okay. And some people are going to start getting frustrated that you don't want to do their work anymore because it doesn't align with your brand. Or maybe you have to leave firms because your current firm doesn't align with the type of work and practice that you want and the brand that you're creating. That's okay. Not everybody has to like it, but what matters is whether or not you like it. And at the end of the day, I think people do understand it over time, but they might not like it right out of the gate. And that's okay. Everybody kind of comes to this awareness in their own time. But remember that the bonus of continuing to do this and continuing to fight for your own space, your own clients, is that every time you do it, every time you push forward and have those uncomfortable meetings or make that pitch and you fail, you're going to learn something and you're going to grow stronger and more confident. I always say that confidence is simply the ability to experience the worst emotions and keep going. That's all it is. But if we're not forcing ourselves to experience those horrible emotions and allowing ourselves to keep going, we can't become more confident. And so this is kind of a crash course way of becoming more confident in yourself by forcing yourself to do these new and hard things. So to kind of summarize where we have been, create that vision of your brand, the type of work that you want, who your client is. We're going to talk a lot about that tomorrow. How do you find them? How do you sell to them? But for today, just create that kind of general vision. Who's that client? What's that type of work that I want to do? What do I not want to do? Where do I need to learn and grow a little bit more? And start kind of making a plan to round out or get closer and more in alignment with that vision. In doing so, recognize that you're going to have some limiting beliefs that come up. I can't do that. I don't know enough. They're going to be mad at me. They might fire me. Just recognize those and let it be okay that they come up because, again, that's part of that primitive brain. It's going to be there, right? If it didn't happen, you wouldn't be a human. And so, allowing that to be part of the journey, we want to find those limiting beliefs so that we can let them go and practice shifting to those new beliefs that will allow us to move forward. And see if you can find one. See if you can find a belief that helps you take action in alignment with your brand. And it might be, I'm figuring this out. I'm learning how to build my own practice group. I'm learning how to find my own clients and sell myself. Anything like that. I'm trying new things. Something like that that resonates with you that can help you move forward, and write it on a post-it note, put it on your cell phone and have it come up as a reminder during the day, whatever you have to do to continually redirect your thinking so that you can act in accordance with your brand. It's going to get easier the more you kind of rewire those patterns. And remember that in order to create that new future that involves your brand, your own client base, practice that you create, in order to do that, we have to act, feel, and think differently. Because the way we've been acting and feeling and thinking is not creating it. And that's why we have to really embrace, like, I've got to change not just what I'm doing, but what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, and start recognizing that that's part of it. And at all times, let that vision lead. If you're ever feeling stuck, ask that future version of yourself that's done this. Like, what would I do in this moment? What would I say? I have this partner coming at me. It's on Friday night and he's a really important partner and he wants me to do this work, but I don't want to do that work anymore. It doesn't line with who I want to be. What should I do? And allow yourself that moment of connection and clarity with that vision, and then decide how you want to show up and how you want to respond. So today we've kind of laid the groundwork for developing your brand. We've talked about why it's so important, how it gives direction to your marketing, to your messaging. And then we talked about developing a brand and the three pieces that go into it. Finding that client avatar, getting clear on the type of work that you want, and figuring out who you want to be and what you need to be believing in order to create that brand. And we talked about how the essential tool of doing this is just belief, and believing that you can do it, and changing your own thought patterns so that you show up in accordance with the plan. Developing the plan is not hard. It's the execution that's hard, and believing that you can do it is required in order to execute. And then we talked about how to start building that brand now, how to develop a plan to change your practice, maybe meet with everybody in your firm and talk to them about the types of clients that they work with and can they help you connect, and letting that all be part of your plan in developing your own solid foundation within your firm. I want to leave you with this quote that really drives home, why I do this work and why I think this work is so powerful. And the quote's from Sandra Day O'Connor, of course. As women achieve power, the barriers will fall. As society sees what women can do, as women see what women can do, there will be more women out there doing things, and we'll all be better for it. And so I truly believe that in order for women to stop leaving the legal profession at rates higher than our male counterparts, we have to figure this piece of the puzzle out. We have to figure out how to get our own clients, create our own client base. And for me, part of that is starting to believe that we can do it, developing that plan and executing, even though it doesn't feel good. Tomorrow we're going to really dig into, okay, this is fine and good. I got my client avatar. I'm working on my belief. I've got this plan, but like, okay, how do I actually like sell to clients and get them to buy from me? We're going to unpack that tomorrow. But today, I hope that I'm just leaving you with this idea of how important it is for us to do this as women, to kind of make our own space in the legal industry and maybe extend our tenures there. And I think increase our power and leverage as we create our own client bases. Once again, I'm Autumn Noble. This is my podcast and my book. For those of you that are interested, you can find more details on all of those at thelawyerlifecollective.com. And then I always end with my contact information. You are more than welcome to reach out and email me if there's something that was unclear, something that you didn't like. I promise you, I've probably heard it all, but happy to chat with you about any of those, or if you have any questions that you weren't able to get in today, I'm happy to discuss those over email. But thank you so much for being here today. We've got about 5 minutes left. I am more than happy to take comments, but again, I know many of you are in a group setting and maybe that's a little bit difficult. So feel free to leverage that email address if that's an easier way to get in touch with me. But we'll just hang out for a moment. We really kind of ran it up to the end. see, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Okay. And pull up the chat. Okay. Anything else? Okay. One question to me directly. Yeah. Okay. So the question is about how it's not that simple to you kind of flip a switch and change your beliefs overnight. And I totally agree. We talked about how our brains are wired to maintain consistency. And that really gets to kind of the neural pathways in our brains and how, once we make a habit of something, it's automatic. We don't even have to think about it. The same thing happens with our thinking. And so when we have thinking that's, I can't do this. No one's ever going to buy from me. Like they only want to buy from, men that look just like them, whatever it is. Those, once we've thought those thoughts enough, they become neural pathways and they just like run in the background. And I call it kind of our crappy elevator music. But it doesn't happen overnight. It happens because over time, we think those same thoughts, and those thoughts become beliefs. And a belief is an opinion that we've just thought and said so many times that we treat it as if it's factual. And then eventually, those opinions just become our elevator music, like just truth, quote, in quotes, truth running in the background. The same thing happens with rewiring. You are not going to wake up tomorrow and believe, being a lawyer is sunshine and margaritas and building my own client base is easy, right? It doesn't work like that. We have to practice those beliefs. And that's why I said, put it in a reminder on your phone, put it in a post-it on your computer, because we want to think those beliefs so many times and beliefs that truly resonate with us that we believe that over time they become an opinion. Like my opinion about myself is I'm able to do this just as easily as the guys are, right? The more we think about it, the more it starts to become automatic and then it starts running in the background. And if you can imagine all the crappy thoughts we have running in the background, imagine what your life would be like if we replace all of that crappy elevator music with positive elevator music. But that only happens if you practice the thoughts and you practice the beliefs so often that they eventually become automatic and automated neural pathways. And so that's what I'm advocating here. Right now it's going to feel clunky. It's not going to feel like I can do this. That is your brain wanting to stick to the old patterns. But we're literally like pulling up those neural pathways and rewiring them. And it does take time. But eventually, if you commit to it, you will be able to start believing emotionally and following through. I can do this and I'm capable. And that's where we want to be. And that's where we need to be in order to really meaningfully do this work. Okay, that is all for our time today. Like I said, tomorrow we are going to be focusing on actually selling to those client avatars. So give some thought to who your ideal client is, what they worry about, where they're at, who they talk to, and bring that with you tomorrow. And then we're going to really dive into, okay, how do I pitch them and how do I actually get them to buy? And I can't wait to get you there. This is one of my favorite topics to coach on. So we'll see you tomorrow. And then the replays will also be circulated tomorrow after the final session. So if you're waiting for, to rewatch today, wait until tomorrow afternoon, and then you'll have that available to you as well. I'll see you then.